Hello, everyone. There's still 13 people talking. All right, good to have everyone here tonight. We really had a big star, a great guest scheduled tonight, but that fell through. So we've got Kurt Witten that's going to be featured tonight.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you.
Yes, that Brad started that.
I know he did. I saw that. So
he's anything to earn points. There you go, Brad.
I can be bought. So thank you.
All right. So just so you all know, because you're seeing me sitting behind a makeshift table and all this stuff, I guess this is to somewhat resemble like the Tonight Show. I haven't watched any of that except maybe like 5 episodes back when Johnny Carson was on there. And so I have no clue, what the Tonight Show looks like. So, but I'll tell you what, we will have stupid human tricks. And so Ben, would you come up and shoot some milk out of tear duct or something or other for people? No? All right. Well, I guess it's just us.
Yes, it's just us, yeah.
All right, so just rules here, okay? If there will be questions from the floor, you guys will have an opportunity, but that will be after, we spend some time here, okay? So the likelihood is, based on the questions I settled on, I'm not going to steal anyone's thunder because I doubt any of you picked boring questions like this. But you will have an opportunity to ask questions pertaining to specific things that we didn't touch on or he didn't answer enough about, which might be part of it. But we appreciate you coming tonight. This is part of our intent. This month, I've been encouraging the staff and encouraging Kurt to take advantage of all opportunities to get in front of people, groups, Bible studies, whatever it is that we have going in the church. That's what July is all about as far as Kurt is concerned, is just giving an opportunity for people to meet him and for him to start, matching some names and faces and all of this. So he's not preaching in July. Now, he will preach 2 of the first 3 Sundays in August. So he will be back up again then sharing. But I say all that to say, Mark, you like it when I say that, right? I say all of that in order to say that if you are in here and you are part of the swings group, or you're part of a seniors group, or you're part of a young adult group or something like that, that is having some kind of a function during July, please invite this guy, okay? So he has an opportunity to get to meet some people and for them to meet him as well, okay? All right, because as things start getting a little bit busier for him, he has absolutely no excuse this month, but later he might be able to come up with an excuse. So, okay, all right, we ready?
I don't know, are we?
I think we are. Okay. All right, we're going to start off with a psychological thing here, because that's one thing the elders forgot to do, is to check psychologically if he's stable, if you know what I mean. So I don't know how you pronounce this. Rorschach test? Is that how you pronounce that? All right, we're going to do that. So Kurt, we're going to show you some images, and I just want you to share what it is that comes to your mind as you look at that image.
Batman.
All right, that was pretty quick. No one else saw that, but okay. All right. Okay, let's show them another image.
Batman with his hands up in the air.
Okay. All right, let's see where this is going. Okay. All right, we got a third one, though. Here we go.
Batman after he hit a windshield of a car.
Yeah, actually, there's more to this one. And it doesn't surprise us that you weren't able to see it. So we've actually color enhanced that. Let's show the image with some color. Now what do you see?
A hate crime.
A hate crime. You want to explain? Go ahead. You want to explain the reaction? Go ahead. They'll eventually learn.
That's the logo of the fiery flames of hell. So I mean, yeah. No, I attended the University of Oklahoma, so those are dirty letters and words and images to me. So I don't have any reaction.
Oh yeah, you had a reaction. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll let this table down here score him as to whether he's stable or not. All right.
I'm not crazy. My mom had me tested.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, Kurt. On a serious note, why don't you go ahead and share with everyone? And I'm sure there will be future opportunities as far as like sermon illustrations and stuff like that. You'll be sharing some of these kinds of details. But share with us when you came to Christ. What was involved in that? What age you were? All of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm what you call a Buick. I'm brought up in church kid. And so, I mean, I grew up in church. I was there every Sunday, and Buick, brought up in church kid. Sorry, I said that too fast. It's an acronym. Is it an acronym or an acrostic? I don't know which is which. But anyway, yeah, I grew up in the church. I spent, we were there every Sunday morning, every Sunday night. I think I was around 13-ish when I got baptized. I don't know if it was before or after my birthday in the summer of that year that I got baptized. And, probably like a lot of kids getting baptized, I knew it was something that I wanted to do. I probably made more sense to me as I got older what I had actually done by going through that. But, that was pretty much it. I grew up in the Assemblies of God church there in our hometown of Miami, Oklahoma. And stayed in that church, but my family moved to a neighboring AG church for a while. I went back there because at the church we went to was a small town, small church, and I was the youth group. And I don't mean that to say like I was the life of the party. Like I literally was the entire youth group. So I went back to the church I grew up in because they had one, and wound up at a non-denominational, unaffiliated church, but same doctrine and all that. And kind of in my early 20s, I started attending the Christian church there in town that Jennifer grew up in, and found it kind of fit me a little better from a doctrine standpoint and made a little more sense to me than some of the stuff we talked about at the other church, and was there until we got into ministry and moved on.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So you mentioned earlier when we were showing one of those images, Oklahoma University. You went there, graduated there, and from that, you, at least what I remember with the resume and our conversations earlier, you got into teaching in the public school along with coaching.
Yep.
And but yet here you are here now, and that's a fairly significant shift, that took place from your mid-20s or so and now you're
mid to late 20s, yeah.
Mid to late 20s,
shift was happening.
and you're in your late 30s now.
You're dating me by calling me in my late 30s.
Well, that leaves. I mean, people don't know whether I'm talking about you 38 or 39. So
I'd say ask my wife how old I am, but she won't remember. So.
Yeah, your wife is later on the list. We'll bring that up later.
So how far down do I have to? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of my dreams was always to be a sports broadcaster. I loved sports, but despite this, physique here, I really wasn't blessed with athleticism. And so I got into journalism. I liked to write about sports. I liked to call games. In fact, I used to play video games and would be doing play-by-play as I called them because I had so many friends when I was a kid. But that was my goal. The summer I turned 16 was 1998. If you were a baseball fan, that was the year Mark McGwire broke the home run record. And so as I'm driving around in my truck for the first time as a licensed driver, I wasn't listening to music. I was listening to Jack Buck call the home run race. And I was like, that's what I want to do is call baseball games and college football games.
Wait, you're saying you want to be Jack Buck?
I did at the time.
Yeah, what about Joe Buck? Express your opinion there. I'll just say Chief fans have a pretty strong opinion, but that's a subject for another.
I found, and he actually has this, I think, in his Twitter bio. I think his Twitter biography says, "I hate your favorite team."
Okay.
Because every fan base claims that he hates their team. Yeah. So Chiefs fans, Cardinals fans think the same thing. When the Royals played the Giants in the World Series that year, that was a baseball thing that I don't know if you know about, but they were in the World Series a few years ago.
Is it still baseball season?
I found out they still have a baseball team here in Kansas City, so
okay.
I can tell you that now. But
he's going to start digging a hole with some of you.
I started it last Sunday. I'm just going to keep going. But no, even my dad was complaining about Joe Buck just hates the Royals. I'm like, he hates everybody, so whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, that was what I wanted to do, and so I went to a junior college in our hometown for a couple of years. Wound up at OU, and then it's funny, I'm such a sports guy. 2004 was one of those that could have been the best sports year of my life because the Cardinals won 105 games. They were the best team in baseball, and then got destroyed in the World Series, by a team that hadn't won the World Series in like 100 years. And then OU was undefeated all year and then got destroyed in the Orange Bowl by USC. So it's like great season, then terrible ending. But that's what I wanted to do was broadcasting. I majored in that. So I was in the College of Journalism at OU. I had a journalism degree with a broadcasting major. And I didn't really listen to all the people who said this is not a good field to go into. Because I found out once you graduated, it's a horrible field to go into because people do these jobs until they die. It's like, you see somebody who's calling games in their 70s or 80s. They don't have to retire early because they're living out a dream. Like that's sitting there calling a game and getting paid to do it. And so I realized there's not going to be much of a future for me in this field. And I wound up moving back to our hometown and 2006, I got a college degree in my pocket, and I could not find a job, like anything. Our hometown, there's not really a market for people with college degrees. It's a very, very blue-collar town. I even had a friend of my dad say, "Kurt, I'm not going to hire you. You'd be bored to death here." I said, well, at least I could get paid while I'm being bored to death. I'm sitting at home trying to find a job, and I worked a string of part-time jobs for 2.5 years with a college degree in my pocket, and it was just a very humbling time, for me to go from, man, I was so good at this and people need to recognize this, to God saying, maybe you're not quite what you think you are. And, it's funny, I tell people that story that I went through such a humbling experience because I was very arrogant. And they say, you were? Like, as if I still am, so I don't know if I should rub people off that way or what, I don't know. But I had kind of been spinning my wheels in that. I tried to go into a different field. I tried to go into the medical field, and I just didn't work out either. I tried school with that, and I think it was the beginning of God saying he had different plans for me. And it was, I think, around 2008, early 2008, late 2007. Our youth pastor there in First Christian in Miami, his wife came to me, and she had just gotten a teaching job and said, why don't you look into teaching? It's like, I don't want to be a teacher. I remember what kind of student I was, and I don't want people like me in my class, and because, I was one of those students who knew more than the teacher and made sure they knew about it, and I'm sure they loved me, which was funny because then they got my brother 4 years later, and he got judged like day one, oh, you're Kurt's brother, awesome. But I got into teaching. Oklahoma's got a process where if you've got a bachelor's, you can get alternatively certified. So I went through that process and got that. Wound up getting a job at the high school I went to in my hometown, and taught for 5 years and was assistant soccer coach for a couple, head girl soccer coach for the last 3. And shortly after I started is when Jennifer and I started dating, and we got married the next summer. And I kind of knew about the time we got married. She had been to Bible college right out of high school. She'd spent a couple of years or parts of a couple of years in Africa as a missionary. And, then she decided to give all that up and come home for me because we were talking already. And they got nothing out of that except her rolling her eyes back there. But
You're not on the stage. You can't talk.
you don't have a mic, so they can't hear you on the video, so it's great. She came home and we started dating like 3 days later, so you can do the math. But no, like we got married the next summer, and I kind of just knew. Like I kind of felt my life being pulled towards ministry. And I knew that I was not going to be a career teacher, like in the classroom. I just knew that this was a season. And that's what Cassie, my friend, had told me. She goes, don't think that you're getting into a career. Just this is something you can do and probably be good at until you figure it out. And it was just kind of another preparing season of okay, if you're going to do ministry, you need to learn how to teach and how to prepare and think through things. And so I did that for 5 years and then left. I'd been doing some online Bible classes at Ozark. And at that time, Ozark didn't have a full online program yet. And ironically, they started it the year I graduated. But I got to a point where I just had to jump in and go full time. So I managed to knock the rest of it out in about 3 semesters. And that was jumping into ministry. And, kind of just went straight into it.
Yeah, so then after Bible college, your first year in ministry was what year?
So I graduated in December of 2014. And then I didn't have anything lined up. I actually went back and taught an additional semester. We had some stuff happen at the high school. Some teachers were let go. And so they asked me if I would come back. And I wound up in that time getting accepted into a residency program at Christ Church of the Valley in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And so we went out there that summer. We're there for a year. Finished that in May of 2016. Again, didn't have anything lined up just yet, so we went back to Oklahoma. We're there for, 5 or 6 months? Somewhere thereabouts. And I think we'd been back about a month and a half to 2 months when I started the process of getting the job in Oregon. And we wound up out there in November of 2016.
Okay.
And then we were there until a month and a half ago now.
All right. So, here we are trying to learn about Kurt, but in the process, we're learning about Jennifer, a gold digger that just was out on the mission field, and she saw an opportunity to marry the next Joe Buck, and came back, and then he goes in the ministry. I bet that was like pulling the rug out from under you.
I was the voice of the War Dogs at that point. I was calling high school.
War Dogs?
We're the War Dogs,
War
yes.
Dogs.
We're the only school in the country that's called the War Dogs. And so I was doing radio play-by-play. We had people tuning in by the dozens to listen to these games.
There you go. I can see why you came back.
Yeah. Why would you pass it up?
Yes. All right. Well, I'm trying to figure out which PrimeTime we're going to get Jennifer up here. Okay.
There's an extra chair here.
All right. We appreciate that background on all of that. And so just kind of lighten it because we're pretty intense here. Kind of lighten it a little bit. Let me ask this question. If you could compare yourself with any animal, which would it be and why?
Any animal. Is this like what's my spirit animal or?
You can take it and run with it any direction you want.
Boy, I'm an awful lot like a house cat at times. I'm needy. I complain.
A house cat is your answer.
No, that's my answer while I'm thinking of the real answer. The first thing that popped in my head was giraffe, and I don't know why, just because a giraffe popped in my head and then a house cat. So I'm saying that and I'm rambling as I'm actually trying to think of a good answer for that question. So
Well,
I'll pass.
How about we do this? Because you've given us two options. Raise your hand. Those are the two options, house cat or giraffe. So when you look at him, do you think of a giraffe? Raise your hand. I see one hand in the back. When you look at him, do you think of a house cat? Raise your hand. All right, there you go.
Would it help if I just got up and laid on the table?
All right. I got to make a note of that, house cat.
Okay, what animal? You wrote the question. What animal do you think I must
I'm
relate
not
to?
being interviewed here, so. All right, well, let's ask a question that surely you're going to have answers on this one. What's your top 4 or 5 movies?
Top 4 or 5 movies. In no particular order, The Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, the entire Star Wars saga is one movie.
One movie?
One movie, yes. Because otherwise I'd probably pick just 5 from it, and that makes me sound like a really huge nerd. I don't know if this is still one of my top 5, but if you saw the Facebook meme a couple weeks ago that was like, what's one movie you know you've seen more than 10 times? Dumb and Dumber is that for me. When I was a kid, I could quote every single word of that movie, and I often did on long road trips to my mom. And she's very proud of me these days, but... what are some of my favorite movies? I'm blanking out on that one.
Well, I think
I've got a lot.
You've mentioned 4, so
That's
you've
true.
answered,
I did mention 4.
All right, good.
I'll stick with those.
Okay, that works. Appreciate it. Tell us something about yourself. Now, we'll say Jennifer's going to be the exception on this, but tell us something about yourself that you're pretty positive, pretty certain not a single person in here knows about you, with Jennifer as an exception.
Well, I mean, that's that not a single person knows. There's probably a good list. I once got stuck locked inside the football stadium at OU because we were checking out and snuck into the big, huge Sooner Vision scoreboard, like late at night. And when they came through to lock the stadium, they didn't see us because we were up inside the scoreboard. And then we came down and the stadium was locked.
So you spent the night?
No, we broke out. We had to climb a fence and climb a fence and jump down into the tunnel the players run in on. And I'm pretty sure we tripped alarms as we did, but we just took off running and didn't look back.
Okay.
Also, when I was in 6th grade, we locked a classmate in a tuba case and put it on the shelf in the band room because he dared us to, but then we went and had lunch and came back and got him out later.
Oh, wow. We ought to get Phil to help him teach our youth. Okay.
Also, probably my best church kid story. I've got a lot of these. Sorry, they're starting to come to me now. I couldn't answer the house cat one, so I'm going off on this one. My best church kid story. I wasn't a pastor's kid, but I probably acted like one a little bit. We had a lady in our church. This was a small church, and she played the tambourine every Sunday, and she was terrible, because she just couldn't keep a beat. And she sang really loud, and it was really distracting. And we hit her tambourine one time. I don't remember if we hit it in a closet up on a shelf underneath a stack of old hymnals or what it was, but it was 6 months later before she found it. And she was furious. And she blamed me. I was like, what have I ever done to, she didn't, obviously I had just done this to be blamed, but she didn't know it was me, but she was blaming me. And our pastor found out about it. And he's like, Kurt, you can't do that. And then as soon as she turned around, she's like, that was great. He's like, you should have hit it better.
Okay.
So.
All right. So, Tracy, I don't know if you're making notes, but if we miss anything in the office, just mark that down.
The only thing I've stolen so far since I've been here is Matt's chair. And Tracy ratted me out on it. Why is there a chair hidden in this classroom? Didn't go here. Matt's like, oh, that's the chair I'm missing. It was earlier today.
Okay. All right. Here, on a serious note, So you've been in full-time ministry now 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is going to be a two-part question. The first part, what is the most rewarding part of ministry that you found?
I think I know what the second part of the question is going to be too. But the most rewarding part, I said earlier that when I started teaching, I knew that wasn't going to be my life was teaching in a classroom, but learning how to teach. I think that's kind of always been natural to me. So learning how to really refine that. And so I think for me, what's been rewarding is just whether it's from the stage or whether that's in a smaller setting or being with somebody is really teaching and walking with him through realizations of coming to know who Jesus is and coming to know more about the Bible or trying to break some misconceptions that maybe they have because the church they grew up in was a little off or well-intentioned but misguided or just trying to teach the truth of Scripture and who Jesus is and what you mean to him. And, seeing that realization on people's faces for me is probably the most rewarding part of it.
Okay. Like seeing the light.
Not necessarily seeing the light like it go off, but just you see the change in them. And it may not happen as I'm talking to them. They may come back later and say, I really thought about that or I'll preach and they'll come up and say, I never thought of it that way. And it's funny too how the Spirit moves because I don't know how often somebody comes up and says, man, when you said this, like that just hit me. I'm like, well, that was just like a side note. That wasn't even the main point, but that's what the Spirit led them to set on during that lesson or that sermon. And so for me, that's rewarding for me to, not to say that I did that for them, but that God used me to open their eyes or their heart to know more.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah. There have been multiple Sundays I've had someone going out the door and they share something with me like, oh, I really like such and such point, and they explained it to me, and they said, man, that was so good. I'm never going to forget that. And I'm listening to them and thinking, did I make that point? And, so apparently those are some of my best points. But
yeah. Well, and I had someone one time say, when you said this, and I was like, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you were podcasting something in your ear while you were listening to me or what. But.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times it is, whether it be in our own study or it be someone else that is processing what they're hearing and everything. It's a matter of connecting dots in their mind. And so they have a reservoir of dots that they're bringing this new information into, and it can lead them to certain convictions that we're oblivious to.
Yeah.
But yet the Spirit of God is right in the center of all of that. Okay, so you anticipate the second part of the question. What, in the last 4 or 5 years, what is the most challenging part of full-time ministry?
Trying to think how to say this. Probably the most challenging part at times is it can become a grind. And I think you probably know this, where sometimes it can just become a grind. And there's times where, like any job, any part of life, you have ups and downs just in what you do and in your personal life. And, for me, those personal downs sometimes can spill over into ministry. And it can be, at times where it's just a challenge for me on a given week to just read my Bible the way I'm supposed to for myself. I just catch myself just prepping for a sermon or just, I don't say going through the motions, but kind of just doing what you got to do. And for me, that's a challenge, is to make those times few and far between, and to try and make sure I'm staying active and that whenever I'm preparing to teach something, I'm making sure I get something out of it too, before I bring it up here. Obviously too, for me, it was a challenge of, we answered a call to go to a town we'd never heard of and move across the country. And, we didn't fully know what we were getting into. And so the challenge is just trusting God to lead you and to take care of you. And I say that sometimes being in ministry is like being a coach at a college or a pro team. I mean, you are there for a season, and that season may last a few years or a long time. You hope it's for a long, long time. But there's times where, like out there, it was, it was our intention. And a couple years in, we had some stuff that I didn't anticipate come up at the church. And it all was kind of in motion before I ever got there. But being the lead guy, I got to, be the one catching the arrows for it. And it just is what it is. That comes with the job. It's what you sign up for. And so that was a challenge to get through that and then to see the reactions people had to it and, try to protect my family from it a little bit too and stay positive and get up the next Sunday and preach again and not let that spill over on just.
Yeah, things coming up you don't anticipate. Yeah, that sounds familiar. That happens. As much as you try to anticipate, there's still going to be some things. I thought he was going to give a simple or a short answer to that. Most challenging, people. But
that was my way of saying people.
Okay. Yes, much more thought through.
Because I don't know these people yet. Are they issues? I mean, you have to talk to me about this. And
there's only 15 of them that are issues.
Okay, you can tell me tomorrow which ones. Okay.
Okay.
I don't want don't point at me. You can do this, but
yeah.
Okay.
But I will stare at the ones. So you just kind of
the lights are so bright. I don't know that I can see faces. So.
Okay. All right. So, some pretty serious stuff there. So let's, flip-flop and go to something perhaps a little more lighthearted, although you can take it wherever you want, so maybe it won't be lighthearted. If you could get rid of one state,
Texas.
What state would it be and why?
Texas.
Wow, that was quick. Did you hear what he said? Texas. And we got clapping down here. Yeah, okay.
So I actually had a T-shirt when I was in college, and it had an outline of the U.S. with Texas cut out, and it just said, "Imagine a world without Texas." Now, when you grew up as an Oklahoman, the last few years I probably said California because in Oregon that was our Texas, but Texans would come across and let us know how great Texas was and how everything in Oklahoma was so subpar. I'm like, then go back to Texas. We don't want you here anyway. And when I attended OU is probably really when it hit a head for me because a lot of our students were from Texas, from the Dallas area. It was cheaper for them to pay out of state at OU than it was for them to go in state. And they'd come and this is a stupid state. I'm like, go back to yours. Like, this isn't the University of Texas at Norman. Go back to your own state. Like, we don't need you here. So I joke and say that, I joke. When people ask me if I've, people say, have you been out of the country? I've said, well, I've been to Israel and I've been to Texas.
Okay, all right. And just so people know, you mentioned Miami earlier. That is in very much the extreme northeast corner of Oklahoma. So, you're almost a Kansan. Okay, just for the record.
I still have an Oregon driver's license, so.
You have a what?
I still have my Oregon driver's license. I haven't become a Kansan yet.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay.
No, it's funny. We are 10 minutes from the state line. When we came up and visited in March, we drove, as soon as we leave the house, we cross the state line, and our kids are in the back, like, hey, girls, we're in Kansas. Like, yay! It's like, just 2.5 more hours to go. Like, oh.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself on a personal level. Help us to know who Kurt Witten is outside of a Sunday setting, in regards to hobbies, interests. How do you like to spend your time?
When I have the time to spend, and right now it's kind of been a whirlwind since we've been here, but if we can, we like to travel, which it doesn't happen that often especially the last year and a half, but travel and see things. This may be one, you said what's something people may not know about me. I like to cook and grill and run a smoker and those types of things. And one of my bucket list items is to someday have an outdoor kitchen, where I can have everything set up and do that. But I like to do that kind of stuff. I don't do it very often. I like to play golf. I'm not very good at it. I won't, undignify anybody who's a golfer by calling myself a golfer, because I just hit the ball and hope I can find it after I hit it.
I think there's a few others out here.
Okay,
like
then
that.
let's meet up afterwards, and once upon a time, when we lived in Oklahoma, I liked to duck and goose hunt. I hadn't really got to do that in the last several years, but I've got all my stuff and gear still, so just a little, hint, hint, wink, wink, if anybody knows where to go do that around here. Do that. We like to go to baseball games. I wore my Royals jersey and teased them. Somebody told me I said something inappropriate about the Royals. I don't think I did, but we've gone to more. I didn't say that. I didn't say I didn't like them. Not even close. I said they were my favorite team. I think I said minor league team, but I said they were my favorite team. But we've been to more Royals games than anything else. I mean, I've been to probably 40 or 50 games over the course of life, because especially back in the 90s when I was a kid, they were so bad, tickets were $5. We came up and got general admission tickets for $5 and sat up there and watched. But go to games, just we're fairly low key, in terms of that, but we like to hang out and play board games and have movie nights and that type of stuff. So that's something we're hoping we get to do once we get into our house and get settled and have select people over at select times. I'll go through that list with you tomorrow, and then we'll decide who those select people are.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Fogo's coming first. He started the clap earlier, so Fogo's up first.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you were talking about duck hunting and stuff.
He just ignored that.
And I'm not sure about duck hunters here, but I know there are some wannabe house cat hunters.
Okay.
And the name has been mentioned already, and I won't repeat the name, but he is in the room.
Wannabe house cat hunters. Okay.
Yes.
So, I've been told I can never get a cat at our house. I won't say who, but one of the partners in my marriage won't have cats in the house. And
well, good for her. I mean,
I'm not necessarily a cat person myself, but we named our dog.
Oh, no, we voted. You are.
Okay. We named our dog Ozzy after Ozzie Smith, who's one of my favorite baseball players growing up. And she wouldn't let me name our son after any of the athletes that I had suggested we name him after. At the top of the list was Yadier Molina, the catcher for the Cardinals. And so I've saved Yadier just in case we ever have a cat, then we can name him Yadier Meowlina.
It seems totally reasonable.
I thought so too, yeah. I thought so too.
Okay. All right. So let's go with the serious question here. When you become an old man, and I'm going to give a year to this.
That's good, because I was wondering.
When you are 60 years old.
Okay, I got to do the math here. Okay.
And you look back on your life. And this is a serious question. You're 60 years old. You look back on your life. What do you want to see? What do you hope you will see?
Other than my kids out of the house. Will Titus be graduated by then? I'm not sure. Yeah, he'll be graduated by then. Okay. I hope, at 60, I hope that I look back and I see, because I'm turning 39 here in a few weeks, so looking at 21 years down the road. I hope that I see an impactful career in the ministry. And when I say impactful, I mean, it's easy to say, well, it means the church has grown and expanded. And that's one thing, but a ministry that's made a difference in the community around it. A church that's made a difference in the community around it, that God has blessed me to be able to lead. I hope that I see, Jennifer and I as a marriage that has, gotten stronger day by day and has been able to influence and impact other marriages. My kids will be at that point in their, well, if I'm 60, Elsie will be 30. So they'll be in their 20s by and large. And I hope I see that my kids are beginning a life that also impacts others. The best parenting advice I ever got was from a friend of ours who, kind of in that one season of life ahead of us, where their kids are just now all finishing high school, or their youngest is, I think, is going into a senior year, or just graduated, said, his goal was never to raise good kids. It was to raise good people. And not to raise Christian kids, but to raise good Christian people. And that stuck with me. And so I hope that I'm seeing, Elsie at 30 and Amelie in 27, 28, and Titus at 24 at that point. Beginning lives that impact others. Whether they're married by then, whether they have kids by then, I don't know what they're doing. But if I see them and they've even become better people than what Jennifer and I are, I'll look back at that and think, man, God's really blessed us. I mean, I'm going to probably say that wherever we're at, but God's really blessed us to say that there's a continuing impact on the kingdom, through our family.
Okay, very good. All right, I've got one more question I'm going to ask, and then I already, shared something that you'll be able to talk about. But during some of the interview, the Zoom meetings, and all of this that the elders had with you, of course, some of that was still, when you guys, especially in Oregon, were still experiencing some of the COVID restrictions more so than we were. We were, definitely having some of them here as far as requirements of masks and stuff like that, but yours went beyond what ours were. And one of the things, that you had shared was, some of the hours you were putting in, the work level, and there was a combination of reasons for that. One, you were doing church differently because of the COVID, but also, perhaps part of it was because a lack of some volunteers and things along those lines. But just so you know, certainly everything wasn't hinging on this, but it was, one of the factors is work ethic. That was one of the things the elders were looking for, among a list of things. So I want to ask you this question. What motivates you to work as far as ministry goes? What motivates you to put in that time, to go that extra mile, to make that extra effort, whether that be in your study or whether that be working with a family or something?
Part of it, and this is probably what was a bit of downfall is the right word, but a bit of a negative for me last year, because what he's referencing is we were online for 16 weeks last spring, like fully online, completely shut down. I think we could have up to 10 people in the room, which they weren't coming by and checking us, but up to 10 people in the room at a time. And so we had, everything was recorded. I was showing Ben, actually today, he was showing me some stuff you guys did during that time. I was showing him what we did. We had to bring our band in, and it was just myself running a camera and our sound guy. And that was it. And then I would take all that. I would come in another time to record a sermon. I'd have somebody else come in and record communion and an intro, and then I spent 2 days putting it all together on the computer, uploading it. So it was running, 60 to 80 hours a week during that stretch. And part of that, too, was I was the only person who knew how to do that video stuff. It wasn't just something I could hand off to somebody else or teach anybody else quickly. But to say what motivates me, and part of what was a detriment to me at the time there is I have a tendency to be a perfectionist with those types of things. And so I will spend sometimes too much time on things like that. And there especially, I had so much else on my plate that I would spend, X amount of hours. And I don't have a set number of hours I spend on a sermon. It depends. We were talking last night, having dinner with the Hames over here about, asked me about how I sermon prep. I said, it depends on the topic and the text in the week. There's some topics and texts I know well enough. I don't have to pour into scripture on those the week I preach them, because I've gone over that over and over and have that pretty well ingrained. And so I just brush up. There's some that it's fairly fresh, and I'll spend more hours. So it's the drive to do whatever I do as well as I can possibly do it. When I say that I'm a perfectionist, it doesn't mean if I get up here and it's not just a perfect sermon, I'm going to walk off and kick myself or think, man, that flopped. But I want to do it as well as I can possibly do it, to the best of what God has wired me to do and gifted me to do. And so that's really where it comes from. I also feel too, like as a pastor, our job, my job is to set the example and to set the pace. That's what I felt at the church in Oregon, was to set I've heard this said from so many people, I don't know who coined it, but it was the speed of the leader, the speed of the team. And so I wanted to set the example that I'm willing to work this hard. I'm not going to ask anybody to work harder than I'm going to. Thought that was one of mine for a second. So, because that would totally be on par if he's breaking free and running through here. So, but yeah, I think that's probably a lot of it.
Okay.
Is, I learned watching my dad work 2 jobs growing up and hearing about my grandpa who just went over and above to do things. And I think I'm getting this way. My grandpa had such goofy, funny personality, and he had a sense of humility that has stuck with me, because if you asked him to do something for you, he would obsess over it until it was done. And if he got home, this guy he could fix anything. If he got home and thought, man, I didn't do that right, he would be up all night because it would bother him so bad, and he would be back at your house first thing in the morning. But if you did something for him, he didn't care how good it was. He just cared that you put your heart into it. And his phrase was always, it's good enough for who it's for. If you gave him something and you're like, well, sorry, this isn't the best. He goes, well, it's good enough for who it's for, And I've tried to kind of embrace that a little bit, but watching my dad, Jennifer's parents the same way, just watching them, I try to do the job that's given to me as well as I can possibly do it. And I don't want to cheat anybody out of the process of that.
All right, I appreciate that. And just tacking on one thought in regards to the thing that, if you, hit a blooper in a sermon or something, you don't have to worry about kicking yourself. That center table right over there, there are several around that table that they will kick you, especially the 2 on this side.
Which table? Over here? That
yeah,
one? Okay.
Just right. The one she's looking down.
Trying to pretend like
she's got tears in her eyes.
Is she the
now.
one pretending like you're not pointing at her?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
But what's funny is how often I will, have a flub in a sermon. And if I do, I try to just play off of it and not make a big deal about it. And I'll tell a joke that'll just fall flat. I'll usually say, that was hilarious in my office this morning when I was going over this, or which that joke right there was hilarious in my head just now. But it's funny how often in those little mess ups, somebody said one time, like, we like it when you mess up. I'm like, well, thanks, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
So.
All right. So, all right. Where this is where you want to take it, Kurt. But I want to give you a couple of minutes here to be able to just have an opportunity to share, whatever you feel moved to share that you think might be helpful, for people in knowing your family or knowing you personally, or whichever way you want to take that. Okay.
Wow. Where to start with that? I like to think we're kind of a what you see is what you get family. We try to just be who we are. And, Jennifer, as you guys get to know her, she's, her heart has been in the church her whole life. I mean, she's, I called her a legacy, member of the church that she grew up in, because at the very least, your grandparents were anchors in that church for years, and I don't know beyond that. So her mom and her mom's twin sister have grown up in that church, and then Jennifer and her sisters and her cousins have grown up in that church, and now their kids are growing up in that church, and this is where her heart is, to be in the middle. It was funny, because when we got out there were kind of expectations that weren't articulated very well, but that were expected of me and also of her. And I said, I'm the one you hired. If you want her to do something, you can ask her like a volunteer, or you can pay her to put her on staff. You're not just going to demand that she's here as much as I am. And she wound up, of course, having to fill a bunch of roles. So when she came on one of the Zoom interviews, and I'm pretty sure it was you, said something about, she goes, what do you expect of me? And Brad said, not much, just run the nursery and cook the meals and clean up after service. And after we got off, because he was just deadpan face, she goes, he was joking, right? I said, he was joking. I said, I'm like 95% sure he was joking. But the thing about her is she's determined, she's resilient. She wears her heart on her sleeve, and she's everything that I could ask for as a partner in ministry. And I don't know. I told Brad today, I said, my heart was always led towards ministry. I just never knew how to do it really or when to do it. And God obviously needed to prepare me a lot longer than he did some others, because I was 31 when I started Ozark. But I think she was the final piece for me when we got married. It was actually driving back from our honeymoon. I think I told her, I said, I think I'm supposed to go to Bible college. I don't know when, but I think I'm supposed to. And so that's been great, with ministry. And she's my sounding board. I'll say, does this sound ridiculous? And even if I think it does, sometimes she'll go, no, it doesn't. And, so she's kind of my sounding board for that. My kids, you're going to probably get to know them. You're going to hear some stories about them. But Elsie, our oldest, is, if you want to know what I was like as an 8-year-old, hang out with Elsie. I don't know how many times she does something and I just shake my head and go, this is just like looking into a tiny little mirror. Because she's so much like me. And my mom even will hear her do things or say things and just shake her head and laugh, and it's like, this is just Kurt Jr. And so if you ever wondered what it would be like to have two of me around, just wait till she grows up and you'll have it. Her new thing is she's super into the Marvel movies and shows. If you ever want to know anything detail-wise about any of the Marvel characters, the actors who played them, what their superpowers are, what their alter egos are, she will tell you without you even having to ask. Somebody described me once as the perpetual answer to the question nobody asked. That's Elsie. So Amelie is our middle one. She's going into first grade. Elsie's going into fourth grade next year. Amelie's going into first grade. She's 6.5. Amelie is what you see is what you get with her. You never have to wonder if she's in a good mood or not. She is lovable. She loves to hug and cuddle, and she's just a bundle of, her middle name is Joy, and we couldn't have probably picked a better middle name for that, and we just picked it because it sounded good with her first name. That's who she is. And the few times she's in a bad mood, you know it too. Like she can't hide her emotions. She's just naturally funny and naturally goofy. When we were house shopping, we made an offer on a house, and the schools they would have gone to, they were called the Chameleons. I don't even know the name of the school now, but their mascot was the Chameleons. And I told the girls that, and Elsie got furious. I will not be a chameleon. Like, okay. Amelie goes, I don't want to be a chameleon. I don't like them. And I said, yes, you do. When we go to the pet store, you want to look at them. They're the little lizards that change color. Oh, yeah, I want to go be a chameleon. It's like, just her attitude totally changed. Titus, I don't even know how to start with Titus. Titus is, I don't know which one of us is paying for our raising or if we're both paying for it at the same time with Titus, but Titus is a funny kid. He's cute. He does funny, fun things, but he just is non-stop. Watching the fireworks the other night, I don't remember who it was that commented and said, does he ever stop moving? I said, no, he just is on the go, running constantly. And so he's our exhausting one right now. Somebody asked if we have him in the nursery, can we use rope? And I said, use whatever you need to use. Rope, duct tape, Velcro, whatever you need to use, you're welcome to use on this child. I legitimately thought that was him running across here a minute ago because he's broken out of the kids' room every time he's been in there so far. But it's fun. It's fun to see your kids with such drastically different personalities, but yet such similarities as well too. And that's kind of a little bit about us, I guess, in a few minutes. And hopefully you'll get to see much, much more of them and us as the days and weeks go by.
All right, very good. Appreciate that, Kurt. We want to give an opportunity for different ones down here. Tracy, do you have a mic? Yeah. Okay. We got 2 mics here.
We have 2 minutes left, so.
Yeah. So does anyone have a question? There's a question over there, Ben.
We're recording this, so we need to use the mic.
Did you know that Brad doesn't like cats?
I don't, but I'm glad I do now. So.
Hey, I talk about them in sermons once in a while. Well, all right, we have another question. Somebody.
On behalf of the whole congregation, what can we do that helps you guys get settled in and headed in the right direction in your ministry?
I may be the wrong one to answer that question here because, well, for those of you who don't know, I've inherited Mr. Fogo's office and couch. And I was told, I won't say which senior pastor told me this, but I was told that, I said, so I'm replacing Fogo. What's my expectations? They said, well, he only napped for 2 hours a day. So I said, so the bar's set pretty low for me then. So he talked about they hired me for my work ethic, but then gave me a couch to nap on. So I'm not really sure which direction I'm supposed to run in yet, if it's a test or what. But helping us settle in, I know one of the things that will, and this will be my shameless plug, or shameless beg maybe is a better way to say this. One of the things that will help us is just being available. There's going to be times where we just need to dump our kids off for a night. And if you're parents of small kids, you get where I'm coming from with that. But drop them off or leave them for an evening. Maybe it's because we've just got to get stuff done, or we just need a. It's funny. One of the big reasons we wanted to come back to this area and come to this spot here was it's just a little over 2 hours to our hometown. And we don't necessarily want to be in our hometown, but that's where we're both from. And so all of our family is there. And, we thought it's great. We can go back down there kind of whenever. And so far we have gone back every single weekend. I said, this isn't quite what I had in mind, was to go down there this often. And Jennifer's making one more trip this weekend. And I think then we'll stop for a while. But Elsie asked me back a few months ago when we told them we were going to move here. She goes, well, that's great. If you and Mom need to go to the store, you can just drop us off at Grammy's house. And I said, we're not quite that close. I'm not going 2.5 hours to go to Walmart. But having availability for that, or just, I know this is one of the struggles, and one of the things we struggle with out there was there was a bit of a reluctancy from people to accept us for who we were. They had a mold that they wanted us to fit into. We just didn't quite fit that. And it's fine. People are going to have expectations, and that is what it is. And I think, being just having us for who we are, is a great way to help us settle too. And, that we're going to have our own unique personalities and interests and all that, but I'm sure there's going to be a list of things that are more specific answers to that question as they come up. Brad was so gracious. Brad Fogo was so gracious. For those of you who don't know, I think I announced this in one of the services I preached last weekend, week and a half ago. We were under contract on a house, and our closing date was set for August 9th. We think that's gotten pushed up a couple weeks now. So we think we're going to be able to get into it at the end of July now. And Brad Fogo was so generous yesterday when I talked to him. He said, whenever you are moving in, let me know, and I will gladly come tell everybody what to do. And so he wanted to be the one directing traffic for that. So. But, that'll be a time that I don't know exactly when we'll get our U-Haul boxes dropped off and unload, but I'm sure we'll will be willing to accept help at that time. So unloading those.
All right, good. Over here.
From my mom. We determined she looks almost identical to my mom. So every time I see her out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, why are you here? And I'm like, oh, sorry. So when I say what my favorite is, no, I think we've only been to, I've been to 4 places. I think together we've only been to 3. Matt took me to your family favorite, and I forgot the name of it. Is it Bates that you guys like to go to? Yeah. Our favorite, I'll just give you our 2 favorites so far are Q39 and Joe's are our 2 favorites. So Q39 if we don't have our kids, Joe's if we do. I've heard, though, that Jack Stack has really good baked beans. I've heard that from someone.
Yep, they do.
It was you. I heard it from you.
You can have a meal just out of baked beans.
I have heard that, and I've heard that from other people that you're fond of their baked beans. So.
Oh, we got a call coming in.
Call in, yeah.
All right, anybody else got a question? Jennifer, this is your chance to put them on the spot.
No questions at all from you? My favorite, okay, I have to share my favorite pie was the question. So here's a fun fact about me that probably most people would think I'm crazy on. I don't eat dessert. I don't really have much of a sweet tooth. I would rather just gorge myself until I can't eat any more of the barbecue. And you have to wheel me out of there, and prop me up. If I'm gonna have pie though, I like apple pie. And my grandma always makes a strawberry pie that Jennifer's learned how to make. And I don't even know if it technically is a pie because it's basically strawberries and strawberry glaze and Cool Whip. And a crust. So it's called a pie because it's in a crust, I guess. So it's one you make and put in the refrigerator for an hour. You don't bake it. Right? You don't make it, right? I don't know. I don't pay attention. I don't bake, so.
So Sarah, can you believe that? He doesn't like dessert.
Anytime I'd have a birthday party and somebody say, what kind of cake do you want? I was like, whatever everybody else wants, because I probably won't eat it.
All right. Last question, anybody?
What's been my biggest leap of faith, individually or as a family, in ministry? I think just going into ministry. I mean, I left, teaching jobs aren't the most glamorous, they're not the most high-paying jobs. I left the cushiest teaching job I could have had. I had no expectations I had to meet. I taught an elective class. My class wasn't tested. I could pick my subject every year. I coached a team that had no expectations. Like, people say, well, did you get sick of parents? My parents didn't even show up. So, I think in 5 years, I had 1 parent complaint that I had to deal with. I had about the cushiest teaching and coaching job I could have ever had in my home school. So there was the pride of having that. And I think just stepping away from that, knowing that that was a job I could do for the next several years. And going into, I left and went to full-time ministry when Elsie was a year old and Jennifer was pregnant with Amelie. And then she got pregnant, I guess, while we were in school. Or while I was in school, but knowing that there was no certainty of a job waiting for me when I got out, that probably was as big of a leap as any that there was. God's never on my schedule, my time, which probably relates to all of us, all of you, and He's very, very good at making me wait, and usually suffer through some rejection to get the answer that he has for me. And so I think just stepping into ministry in general, was a leap of faith. It was a long stretch of waiting and rejection to get that job in Oregon, and I just had to stay positive that this, several times we'll have a conversation. God brought us to this point for a reason. It wasn't to just leave us hanging. So, yeah, I think just getting into it to begin with has been the big leap. I think too, and I'm sure Brad can relate to this, is when you're young and inexperienced, like I was going into Oregon, you have to trust yourself. And there's times I'm making a decision going, there's not a single person who's going to like this, but I just feel like this is what God wants me to do. And, have to gauge that and follow the Spirit. That's a leap of faith at times is following the Spirit where I think he's leading me. And I believe he's leading me over all the voices I'm hearing from, well, do this or do that or do this or do that. And, have to follow that instead of the easy path sometimes.
All right. Very good. I appreciate the opportunity we've had. Okay, well, let's go ahead and have a prayer, and then you can consider yourselves dismissed at that point. Let's pray. Father, we are grateful for tonight and for the opportunity that as a church family to be able to get together like this and to kind of have a mini crash course here with Kurt and in regards to his family too. Father, we're excited about them being here, and we look forward to what you have in store for us in the months and years to come. And Lord, we just pray that your hand, your blessing would be upon this family and would be upon the church family as a whole as we grow together and as we serve you in this little corner of the world. Thank you, Lord, for the special privilege that we have to be a part of a family that transcends time, a family that can enjoy the connections and relationships now, but can look forward to eternity as well, and still be a part of that family. We celebrate that, Lord, because we celebrate you. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen.